Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an episode of the Artenders with Mac and Dan. I am Dan, he is Mac.
Hi!
A few things we need to get out on the front end. I made the mistake last time when we were discussing the second season of The Wire. I confused, territory, and that's a big thing. I said Avon Barksdale is part of East Side. He's actually part of West Side. And Pop Joe is actually part of East Side. He is not part of West Side. Also, Mac, you kind of made a mistake last week. You were technically correct, but you said that we were going to look at Madvillainy, which is an album by MF Doom, which is half the truth, and it's literally half the truth.
But it's two people,
It's two people. It is MF Doom and Madlib. Madlib is a producer-rapper, and MF Doom is rapper-producer, and they come together to create the special group that is called Madvillain for this one project, Madvillainy, that was released in 2004 to just exponential critical acclaim. But before we get into the nitty-gritty details of what this album holds for us ignorant individuals when it comes, particularly to, at least for me, music. Mac, why did you select this album for this conversation?
Sure. Well, I think it actually wraps back to we were looking at all the songs before we started this podcast on the album. Yeah. And we were looking at which one was the most popular, which one was the most visited, things like that. And by a landslide, the most popular song, at least on Genius, which is what we're looking at right now, but I'm sure across the board.
For those of you who don't know, Genius is a lyric website. Like, it holds the lyrics to plenty of songs, but what's nice about it is that individual users can annotate the lyrics. So, I don't know what this lyric means in this one song. Let me look up the song, go to the lyric. Oh, a user has annotated it. Okay, so that's what, generally we think this line means.
Yeah. Very helpful, highly recommended, by the way.
Yes.
But Accordion is by far the most popular song, and I realized it's because that is the song that Drake shouts out on his Instagram. Not only, obviously, because it's a fantastic song, but it is given a shout out by one of the most popular rap artists in the world right now, which is Drake, and it reminded me of a quote that I believe Mos Def came out with.
Yes,
I know, the best. And he said, "This is MF Doom is your favorite rapper's favorite rapper." Period. That is who MF Doom is. He's known by very few. He's only known amongst the people that are very enthralled and deep rooted in the rap community.
He is not. Let's sort of unpack that a little bit. He's not necessarily known by very few. It's that his name doesn't float around the mainstream media of music, right? Like, everybody knows Drake. Yeah. And when I say everybody, I mean the Joe Schmo across the street that you can walk out your door. Hey, how's it going? I need to borrow a cup of sugar. Like, that person will know Drake.
Right.
That person won't necessarily know MF Doom unless they follow hip-hop to at least some extent, and or is some sort of rap guru, big music head in that game.
Which I think actually ties into his backstory and how he made this character, MF Doom, because obviously MF Doom is not his real name, but he made this character. Yes. Do you want me to go into the backstory a little bit?
Please, tell me the story of Daniel Dumoulin.
Nice with the Dumoulin, yes. Whoa, that was a party foul.
And that was a huge...
Huge party.
And just hearing the snot...
So gross.
That was disgusting.
I am so sorry.
And we'll get to Madlib later, and we'll get into the specifics of this album, because, this album could not exist without MF Doom, and it could not exist without Madlib.
Absolutely.
And the collaboration, I think it's fair to say that this is both of their magnum opus. But please go into the story that is Mr. Doom.
Yeah, the main reason that I picked this album is because this is the most popular album that MF Doom appears on, and I really wanted to focus on him for at least the first part of the episode, because he is obviously so important, very, very culturally influential, rap influential, and he just recently died this past Halloween on
Halloween.
On Halloween. He died to unknown circumstances. No one, still to this day, really knows what happened to him. They only know because his wife came out with a
or at least maybe, like, not to be speculative, but perhaps, like, his wife knows, but for the sake of privacy, is not revealing that information, which she has no duty or need to do so anyways.
Absolutely. So out of respect to her and everyone involved with his life, no one's really pushed them, which is awesome. I'm glad that they have that,
Yes.
So, yes, Daniel Dumoulet, he was a British-born rapper, eventually came to America, never actually got his full citizenship until much later in life, which is why whenever he started traveling internationally, there was a certain point where they would not let him back into the United States.
Oh, that's weird.
And he had to stay in London to for a few years of his career after he'd already made a name for himself in New York.
Right.
Very funny. But anyway, he very early on started a rap group with his brother and another friend of his, and they called this rap group KMD.
Right.
And this rap group was starting to make a name for itself, had gone on a few shows and everything, and they just made an album, or they were just about to release an album.
Yeah.
And right before they were going to release it, Daniel Dumoulet's brother, MF Doom's brother, was hit by a car and died.
Yes.
Due to his death, MF Doom, or not known at the time as MF Doom, but Daniel Dumoulet was not comfortable releasing the album. That album was not released.
Right.
And he kind of spun off the deep end. He went into a crazy depression, left the rap game for a very long time. And then whenever he came back to the label that had originally signed him, the door had definitely closed. And he had a grudge against that rap label because he had worked so hard to get to be a part of them, and and the door had been shut, that he decided that it was the mainstream rap culture that was the problem. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. That was the thing that actually kept him down as an artist. And so he decided to don this. He felt like it was like a villain origin story.
Right. And this is how it starts.
Yeah, right, exactly. And like this pent up aggression and tension that he had towards mainstream rap culture and towards record labels. And so he continued to be a almost entirely independent artist, other than collaborations and things that he did. And so he donned this mask, this original Doctor Doom style mask.
Super duper comic book influence. And the best part is that MF Doom is not the only persona that that Daniel Dumoulet dons.
Yeah.
Which is just very, like, it's funny to think about.
Yeah, right.
But that's just, I mean, we're sitting here and we're remembering MF Doom because that was his most successful persona. He released an album under Victor Vaughn. He also released an album under like King. Correct me if I'm wrong. Ghidorah, named after the three-headed dragon from Godzilla. But this is something that is super duper, of course, villain inspired. And if you can't tell by the album name, Madvillainy, you can kind of see where this is going. That becomes his MO, essentially, his rap game persona. Like, this is the character I am. Like, this isn't, me actually rapping as me, even though that's here and there. Yeah. It's also, I am this character, and I am going to speak through this character as opposed to just purely through myself.
Right, and that's very clear throughout the album, obviously. The entire album is about his villainous and his come to villainy and how he plans on using it. And he even, some of my favorite tracks in the entire album personally are, funny enough, and I love his rhyming so much, obviously, and that we're going to get to that in a second. Funny enough, my favorite tracks are the Madlib tracks. Just the
when it's just Madlib?
Whenever it is just whenever it's just music and no lyrics.
Oh, okay, so it's just an instrumental track.
Yeah, Illest Villains, Do Not Fire, Super Villain Theme. Obviously there's a couple lyrics in Illest Villain, a couple lyrics in Do Not Fire, but very few. It's only for music purposes.
I mean, what I appreciate about this album, probably one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing that I appreciate about it, is the fact that it feels very much so like a collaborative work, right? It does not feel like MF Doom overshadows Madlib. I know we're talking about MF Doom a lot, right? And his face is on the cover. But like I said earlier, this album would not exist without Madlib either. And my personal favorite track, if I had to give a gold medal, yes, so we're already doing it this early.
Oh, man.
If I had to give a gold medal, it would be Strange Ways, which is the 16th track of this. But the part that resonated with me so much, not only with the lyricism and what Doom is saying in the track when it comes to this sort of hypocritical nature, at least in the first verse when it comes to the boys in blue, and then the second verse when it comes to leaders of the market world, right? Where it's this hypocritical nature, but it's undertoned, right, by this beautiful, and we're gonna hear this a lot today, sampling. There's the sampling in this album is tremendous, and this sample is Funny Ways by Gentle Giant. And Mac, love sampling. I love sampling. And Mac, by the way, did you know I love sampling? And the best part is like sometimes when you're listening to a song, you don't even think about like the sample that it's coming from, right? So we did Interstellar 55, you know, however many months back, which was a movie adaptation of a Daft Punk album. This Daft Punk album had more samples than you would think. And
really?
Yes, absolutely. Like Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger is actually a sample from a song called, I believe, Coca-Cola Bottle Baby or something like that, right?
Oh, okay.
But the amount of creativity that comes from sampling tracks, I could not wrap my head around how people figure this out. That the story behind, at least in this album, that Madlib went to Brazil and got boxes and boxes of records to sample from, to listen to and to sample from. The best part, he lost like 2 of those boxes.
Really?
Yes!
What?
That's the crazy part. And then you think about, wow, what if he had more options at his disposal? But even then, like the amount of creativity that seeps into your ears just from the sampling, and how Madlib is able to take these few seconds from this one song, kind of loop it in a way, put a few clicks in, put a snare in, put some drums, and then it becomes this sensational beat with that. And you have this like undertone, this underlying with MF Doom's insane lyricism when you're looking at a track that over 60% of the syllables rhymes with one another.
Right.
It is incredible, but
which I want to get to in a moment.
Yes,
by the way.
Yes, please. But it is incredible the sort of collaboration that this record goes through. I'm gonna say it again. It's great.
Yeah, and if I was to give a number one personally, I think I might have to, even though I named a couple that I really loved, I'd have to give it to All Caps purely because it's the one that sticks with me. Whenever I put the album away, it's the one that's like ringing in my ear as I'm walking down the hallway or whatever. I'm always listening to that song in my head, All Caps. But yes, another thing that I found so interesting about the sampling, like you were talking about, is that it's not simply a matter of sampling other music, although they do that plenty throughout the entire album.
Oh, thank you for bringing this up.
It is a matter of they take so much influence from specifically like audio and
like films, commercials, going way back to like the 1930s. Like we have sampling from Frankenstein that is in, I think, the very first, like the intro to the album, right? But who would think of that, right? Who would think of that from the get-go? Who can sit there and say to themselves, I think I'm going to take this one quote from the trailer that was to Frankenstein with Boris Karloff or whatever his name was. You know what? I think this is really going to fit with the theme of this album. Who thinks of that? Who thinks of getting the sampling a commercial from the 60s? From the 60s!
Yeah. You're right.
I mean, let me check something. That Otis Jackson Jr., who was Madlib, was not born in the 60s. He was born in 73, right? And so, but he's sampling this commercial from the 60s, and it's like, how the hell where did you get this from?
Right,
was this from a record? Was this from just I don't know, folklore, folk stories that your parents would tell you
have
about
no idea.
back in my day when we were sitting in front of the telly. This is what we would see.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Well, another thing that I find so interesting is that I think, at least from what the research that I did, I think why they took so much influence from that 30s, 40s, 50s era is because the type of supervillain that they're talking about is not, it's not a movie supervillain necessarily, like a Marvel movie supervillain. It is a comic book supervillain. And whenever they were looking at the Doctor Doom, specifically in designs and the sounds and the lyrics, which, oh my gosh, so many times MF Doom goes back and makes reference to specific dialogue from specific comic books, which is so insane that he's
and super
genius.
Obscure and
so obscure.
But how he's able to weave it, it feels like and it sounds like just another line.
Yes,
which is what you want.
Right.
You don't want, a line in your song to stick out like a sore thumb when you're not trying to make it so.
Right.
That when you have something as clever as that, it actually plays into the lyricism for the rest of the song. And it plays into what you're trying to do with the rest of the song. And that's where Doom succeeds for so much of it. And it goes beyond just over 60% of the syllables rhyme with one another, which is an impressive feat on its own, but it's also how just the similes and the metaphors and the alliterations and how you have words and phrases that wouldn't typically rhyme with each other, but just the simple pronunciation, or the mispronunciation, if you will, of these phrases to make them go along with each other. And it's this interwoven sort of like series of bridges that happens in between these lines and in between these beats.
Yes.
Essentially is what's going on. If you look at it like a script, right, there are these beats within a song and how he just magically flows just from this one sort of rhyme set, right?
Yeah.
That it's insane creatively, but it also still plays into the theme that is the song.
Yeah. And
then he just kind of eases his way to the next one. I mean, when I think of individuals who are rappers that have an incredible rhyme flow, I think of Outkast in particular, right? I think of Andre 3000, and I think of Big Boy. And then when you look at MF Doom here, it's very much so a similar thing in that regard too. He makes it look easy. You look at some of those raps and you think to yourself, man, ooh, could I do this? But not because you couldn't. But it inspires you to, I want to do this too.
Yeah, right.
It's essentially poetry.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I went through an English class in high school and MF Doom, that name wasn't spoken once after looking at this album is a travesty because of what is going on in the lines and in between the lines. But even just strictly looking at the lines, it's wow.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I totally agree with you. And you said it best whenever we were starting the podcast, and you were like, "Yeah, this was one of those. This was one of those albums that you listen to it the first time, and you're like, that's pretty good. And then you listen to it a second time, and you were like, that was better. And then the third time, you're like, oh my god, is this genius? And every single time, you catch things where you're like, oh, that's absolutely insane. How did a person think of that? And it's not just a matter of it's not just a matter of listening to it. It's also a matter of once you realize, okay, I think that I need to pay this person enough respect as to go and look up the lyrics. I need to read this like
because
poetry.
It's going so fast too. And the best part is that MF Doom is not going fast.
No.
But because of the lyricism, it's going at 1,000 knots a minute.
Right. And it's not a matter of him actually rapping fast. He raps fairly slow because he wants you to catch everything. Yes. But not in like a masturbatory way, not in like a watch what I can do kind of way. Yeah. But in just in a very nonchalant way.
Even though this whole album is a flex and I love it.
Oh my god, for real. But the craziest thing, and the reason that you need to look at the lyrics is because he is pulling off 3 or 4 literary feats at a time.
Yes.
In a single moment. He will finish a line and will have completed, just like you said, he will have completed a holorhyme. He will have, which I'll explain a little bit. He will have completed his phrase, obviously. He will have completed like his seventh rhyme in a row, but in like he pays off in rhymes in insane ways from like phrases that were like dozens of phrases ago. So it's absolutely insane.
Even if you look at just the base value, if you were to put it in a sort of quantitative metric. I mean, if you look at Figaro, which is one of the better songs in the album, if there were to be better songs in the album, because the whole album is great. The first two lines, the rest is empty with no brain, but the clever nerd, the best MC with no chain you ever heard. Like that alone?
Yeah.
And so when you're just reading it, it doesn't really come off the page, but then you say it out loud, and it is as if it has its own weight, as if it has its own wings and it's flying away like Icarus to the sun, you know?
That is something that I would really, really encourage for anyone that is listening. If you are alone and you have no shame, I would recommend actually don't rap with him, because it's impossible. Yeah. But pull up the lyrics and just say his lyrics out loud, and you will feel in your mouth. You're like, holy shit, this is unbelievable.
The text writes itself.
It really does.
The text does the work.
And that gets back to what you were saying about the comparison, right? Between the leak and the later on. Go ahead.
Okay, so fun fact. So when I say they, I mean Madvillainy. And when I say Madvillainy, I mean Madlib and MF Doom started, recording and doing this album around 2002 or so. Mm-hmm. While in that process, this is the start of internet leaks.
Yeah.
And so when an album leaks on the internet, at that time, they had no idea, oh no, like this album's not going to do well because now people can just access it. And even though people were listening to it, because of course, why wouldn't you? It's MF Doom and Madlib.
Right.
Even though people were listening to it and they were telling them, hey, we love this. They were like, no, we're not going to do this anymore because, and the big thing as an artist, right, it may not make sense until you are an artist and when you are doing a project that you kind of want to keep behind the curtain, because you're trying to save and preserve the sanctity of it. And so you want to present something that is artistic in nature that you are proud of when it's ready, right? If you will feel very vulnerable when you're presenting something that you're not necessarily ready for, even though everybody around you will say this is magical.
Yeah.
These two individuals were like, no, it's already out. This is not for us anymore. Eventually, because I suppose the story is that they just wanted to work together because they really enjoyed working together. They were like, screw it, let's finish this work. There is a leaked version you can find on YouTube of Figaro, as we were just discussing. And then you can also just listen to the actual track from the album, also named Figaro. The beauty of the difference is that the lyrics between the two, between the leak and the album release of the song, the same. The intro is different, but the instrumentation is also the same. Okay, so aside from the intro, but the intro is not really a big deal. Both intros are around 10 seconds long, but it doesn't define the song. Okay, so what's the difference? It is in MF Doom's performance. Now, this is really interesting. And I actually have a quote to pull up when it comes to this sort of re-release of this lyricism and this performance, right? Where we have this individual, MF Doom, in the first version, sort of a lot more, I wouldn't say bombastic, but a lot more energetic, right? Like he's coming at you, right? And then you have in the second version, in the album release version, it's as if MF Doom is doing the work for you. If you, for whatever reason, not doing the work for you, but letting the text do the work. So if you ever look at something like Shakespeare, right?
Yeah.
You think in your head, oh, Shakespeare, I'm supposed to put something on top of it. It has a lot of meaning, a lot of emotion, a lot of energy. I need to bring all of that that's in my gut to every single syllable in there, right? When that isn't necessarily the case, right? When you're also, because Shakespeare is still necessarily like poetry.
Yeah.
And a lot of the emotions and what the character is going through is stated directly in the text, right? And so you have MF Doom in the second iteration of a lot smoother, a lot more laid back with his voice. He's not putting something on. It's as if he's more relaxed, and it's this beautiful presentation that it's wonderful because he's just letting you hear the lyrics. He's not putting anything on the lyrics. He's like, this is what I have to offer you.
Right.
This is what you're going to hear, and I don't need to put anything else on it because everything I need to say is already written on the page, and I'm going to say it, not because I'm putting something on top of that.
Yeah.
That's nothing to say against other hip-hop and other artists in general that put their soul and emotion into songs, because occasionally you'll get those songs, and those songs will become incredible songs. But there's something really, really unique about MF Doom, in this case, in my mind, treating his lyricism and his lyrics as if it was a piece of text from a script.
Yeah.
As if this holds enough weight. This bucket's big enough to fit an ocean. Like, I'm going to let this baby ride out and do the work for me. And, I'm comfortable with that. I don't have to do anything more than that. And it's this beautiful, just wonderful, relaxed flow that goes on, and I think it's easy to say that it's better suited for what this album is trying to do. And it's sort of the theme too, that the theming of this album is, we're Madvillainy, we're gonna take over the world. That's our MO, that's what we're gonna do. And so it's actually a lot more interesting when the sort of characters that Doom and Madlib create and also rap as in this album, that they just kind of sink into it and are like, yeah, this is who we are.
Yeah.
What of it? Like, I don't have to prove to you anything, right?
What of it, right?
And so the lyrics are there. What else do I have to prove to you? That's it. This is, at the end of the day, this is it.
Yeah.
And it becomes wonderful because of that.
I would really, really like to get into why it is that MF Doom is as big of a deal as he is, but I feel like I should wait for that until after the break. All right, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Now, just let me explain. First of all, it's free. Second of all, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a whole bunch more. And third, now this is really important, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Hear me when I say no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Howdy and welcome back to the Artenders. So where we left off last time was where MF Doom made his biggest impact, how he became such an important name in rap music, specifically among rappers. So in order to really understand why he's such a big deal and why it's so impressive and influential what he eventually accomplished in his career, you kind of have to take a look back at where rap music started and how specifically rhyme, not necessarily beats or anything like that, but specifically rhyme has evolved from the beginning. So if you look at the very beginning of rap music, it started with...
The very beginning? That's what? Like the 50s, the 40s? Like it's something
No, it's late 70s.
No.
It's late 70s.
Late 70s?
Late 70s, after disco.
No, you got some... No, but there was like inklings of it already going back to
but
the
the first
40s.
Actual rap music where you take discs and you get a DJ to give you some sort of a beat with a with a track behind you, and then you spit rhymes over that beat.
Yeah.
It
was very rudimentary
late 70s,
at that beginning. Yes.
Right. And so rhymes back then looked a lot like simple, like 4 bars, 4 beats. And just like a very simple, like you got a super simple beat, and you always end like AABB or ABAB. So like ba 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 pale, ba 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 male. Yeah, okay. Ba 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 pale, ba 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 male.
Yes.
Ba 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 train, ba 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 cane, and then simple, right? And then later on, you get to people
MF Doom, and he changes everything.
No, this is important. I promise. I promise. So
I had to get in there. I had a very small window as my opportunity.
So so eventually you get to people that start using something called internal rhymes, where you start rhyming within the sentence, and that allows you to that opens a door to eventually a couple years later people start trying multisyllabic rhymes. So it's not just I'm rhyming train with pain. I'm rhyming orange with door hinge.
Well, it's when people make the opportunity to look at it also as poetry, right?
Yeah.
When I think that's the big sort of mental step. Where once you look at it like poetry, it's like, oh, what can I do with this language now?
Sure.
Right? Well, it's not just about performance. It's what can I do with this text?
Sure. And I think that really, that barrier is specifically crossed whenever you get to people that start breaking the chains of the beat.
Yeah.
That they don't have to rhyme on the beat. They can rhyme wherever the hell they want, and the beat's just going to stay there. People that learn how to manipulate the beat, right? And so that's why people like Notorious B.I.G., right? Like Andre 3000. Why these people are so important and such a big deal at the time is because they understand the rules and they are actively breaking them.
Yeah.
That is a very, very important part of all of this. The most important part of the equation, I think. And the reason that MF Doom is such a big deal and the why, in my opinion, he's maybe the biggest leap that any rapper has taken in terms of specifically rhyme and the evolution of rhyme is that he...
And on a consistent basis, too.
Consistently. It's not just like he made one magic album, or it's not like he made one magic song.
Like this, Madvillainy is his and Madlib's magnum opus, right? But there's also Food and Operation Doomsday, as well as other albums under other aliases.
That are insanity.
That are still incredible, yeah.
Absolutely. Born Like This, even. But, yes. So, extremely important, but... The reason is because he is the very first person that I have seen that understands all of the rules and is using all of these people's techniques that have come before him. You know the phrase like the greats of now are standing on giants. Mm-hmm. It's kind of similar, right? So I think that was in The Wire, actually.
Okay.
Funny enough, nice. But yeah, so he's using all of this awesome technique from people that have come before him, and not only is he using that, but he is taking those rules and specifically breaking them in genius ways. So he also starts introducing, just like you were talking about, more poetic elements, not that aren't just rap, but are actual poetry.
Well, I wouldn't even say, I would go so far as to say it's not even like breaking rules, it's just like but look what else you can do with what you're given, right?
Yeah, sure.
Luckily enough, I mean, in particular, this album had the backing of Madlib, but that wasn't necessarily entirely the case on like Operation Doomsday, which I believe was his first studio record, at least solo record. But constantly, it is a constant matter of look what else that we as a community can do with our work, right?
Yeah.
It's not just breaking rules, it's creating new theories. If you look at it from like a professor point of view. Yeah, it's like look at what else we can be capable of. That he's pushing the envelope, that it does make you wish that even though you're always going to come up with those incredible hip-hop artists that you will love, or those rappers that you love, it's only once in a blue moon that you'll have somebody that pushes the envelope this hard. That keeps a cinder block on the gas pedal and has that car rolling no matter what is in the way.
Right.
And so it's a blessing when you get to even listen to work like that and then realize, oh, the intricacies and the actual minute details that went into each individual line. Oh, I didn't think you could flow it in that fashion, and yet you found a way to do it, and you found a way to make it look easy.
Right.
That, once again, if you listen to just the tone of this album, it's as if this guy is just sipping on Mai Tais on a yacht in the middle of the Caribbean. It's just like, these are my lines.
Yeah, right.
You know, and it's as if, and same thing goes for Madlib too, that he was sipping Mai Tais right along with Mr. Doom and making these beats and sampling this super duper obscure things that off of records that he got in Brazil, God knows when, in boxes, and he was able to find a way of I will make this sound genius.
Right.
That
and he does.
along the likes of Jay Dilla and Nujabes, that it's this incredible amount of creativity in the sampling and then in his own musicianhood, if you will.
Musicianhood, yeah, absolutely. And so something that he does specifically that no one really dared to do in the same way that he did before him is because I was talking about single syllable rhymes at the very end of phrases, and then we started talking about internal, and then we also talked about multisyllabic rhymes and whatnot. He's the first person to introduce a holorhyme, which is the rhyming. The
first.
I mean, he's not the first person to ever do it.
Okay.
But because yes, people have done it before, but
right.
He's the first person to really, really use it as a weapon,
yes.
right?
Now, Mac, what is a holorhyme?
A holorhyme is whenever you rhyme an entire phrase. It's not just rhyming multiple syllables. It's rhyming the entire thing. I have an example right here. So in Meat Grinder on Madvillainy, he says, "The worst hated god who perpetrated odd favors, demonstrated in the perforated rod lavers, in all quad flavors, Lord save us."
It's so good.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. And there's only, 2 words in that entire, and that wasn't just a phrase, that was 2 full lines. Actually, if you want to get technical, 4 full lines, where only 2 words of the 4 fucking lines are not rhymed.
Yeah.
Are not used for a specific scheme, a specific rhyme scheme.
That syllable doesn't go along with another syllable.
Right. And that is absolute insanity. He will have entire, and it's not even just that he's rhyming random words.
But the best part is like, oh, that sounds easy. That sounds like I can do it. Then why isn't hardly anybody doing it to this degree?
Right. And yeah, it's. And the craziest thing is whenever you see videos of him performing live or him trying freestyles, and it's not just that he works forever at doing this. This is how he thinks.
Yes.
This is how this guy sees rap music.
Yes.
This is his flow.
And I understand, and we both understand that there are, of course, there are going to be artists that prioritize more of what they're trying to say as opposed to how they're saying it, right? And I think it's clear that MF Doom's priority is how he's saying it, but it's still impressive when you do get a song like Strange Ways off of this record that he's still saying something with this insane lyricism, with the quality that this is.
It's not just that he is using all this insane technique. It is that he is still telling a story somehow. He is still getting out a consistent line, and
as a character.
It's not even himself. It's MF Doom. Exactly. And so it's insane that he is able to use all of these weapons. And I say weapons because I really do think that he is using rhyme as his supervillain superpower. Yeah. And that's the tone that he gives you consistently throughout this entire album. Another thing that he starts to do is use expectations, right? Is use conventions. So he will.
I know where this is going.
Yeah, and so something that is absolutely insane is that he will set up. This is the craziest part. He will have entire setups. Yes. That will rhyme every single syllable with the punchline.
Yes.
Except for one word. And at first you're like, oh man, if it was just that one word, you're 1 word away from it, right? And the craziest thing is the 1 word is not just a random word. It's a word that's going to set up the next rhyme.
From the song Great Day.
Yeah.
Spit so many verses, sometimes my jaw twitches. One thing this party could use is more... booze.
Yeah, he says booze, which is clever.
Which is funny, but the best part is that my mind wanted to say, and excuse me, bitches.
Yeah, absolutely.
It wanted to say it. I was about to say it. But the great part about that line is that, no.
Yeah, he gives you booze. And no. And yes, absolutely. Clearly, it is clever on the very first layer because he is... because he is using that expectation to get you to bitches and then gives you booze. But the more impressive part is that he's not pulling booze out of thin air.
Yeah.
He set up the rhyme for booze. Because earlier in the line, he says use.
Yeah.
That's insanity. It's not that he just says just some random word. It's that he says...
Because your mind is wired to listen out for the rhyme in the very last syllable or so of the line.
Yeah.
Right? But he's still able to use booze. One thing this party could use is more... Booze.
Exactly. And so exactly. You are thinking whenever you hear glitches, twitches, that you're going to get bitches. And you're only thinking that because he gave you glitches. You're only thinking bitches because you're like, oh, glitches
I got
is the end of it.
glitches, then I got twitches.
And those are both the end of the line. And so the end of the line again is going to have to be bitches.
And then, but he makes a distinct choice. No. I am going to rhyme. I'm going to first mess with your expectations, but I'm still going to rhyme within the same line.
Exactly. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane that he's able to get away with that shit consistently. It's not that he is just doing that, like, these are the single lines. We're just pulling random lines just from this album.
Yeah.
Just like you said, he has a plethora of albums and work.
It's a whole petri dish.
Same damn thing over and over and over again. Absolutely.
I have a sizzle serve.
Oh, give it to me.
I am glad that this is Madvillainy, which is the alter ego, of MF Doom and Madlib. That is the group. I am glad that this is their only record.
I agree. I don't think that's... yes, it's a sizzle serve, but it's a sizzle serve that I happen to agree with. I absolutely agree.
Because it's one of those things where it's so clear, I feel, that after you listen to this, maybe not the first time, but maybe after the second time. And then after you listen to it for the second time, you're like, I should listen to this again and also look at the lyrics. And then you do that, and then you think to yourself, I don't know how, if anything, that they could do could beat this, right? I mean, when you look at something that has really high expectations, 9 times out of 10, they're bound to fall. It happened with, like, the last season of Game of Thrones, which was legitimately bad, but that's not the point. Or, like, in the case of, like, something that I love, like Kingdom Hearts 3, right? Yeah. That I've been waiting for Kingdom Hearts 3, this video game and this series for years and years and years and years. And even though I still loved Kingdom Hearts 3, it's only natural that the expectations were going to become so rampant that things were not going to be met because people are human, right? And so if we look at Doom and if we look at Madlib, that after you come off of Madvillainy, how the hell do you come back, right? From my understanding, it was mostly like Doom's choice not to come back. And we saw like Madlib released a sort of second version of Madvillainy that had remixed instrumentals of most, if not all, of the songs that came from the record. And it's a very clear, hey, when is this sequel coming? I also want to work on this sequel because I enjoy just working on this, right?
Yeah, right.
But there is a sense of joy of just like one and done. It's like one of those things where Queen's Gambit succeeded as a TV series, that it was one season, this is what we had, we're done, we're leaving it Story all complete. On the table. Yeah. And even though Madlib wanted to do something more, which I totally understand, from the understanding is that they loved working with one another.
Sure.
And to get another opportunity to produce art like this, like shoot, who wouldn't take that, right? But there is something wonderful of like, you know, wiping the hands clean. Yeah. We gave it everything we got this one instance.
This is never not going to be a great album.
Yes. And such a distinct album that it's not even an album designed for making money.
No.
Most of the tracks run under 3 minutes.
Yeah.
None of them could really be released as singles on the radio because of just, if you listen to them, you wouldn't really bump to them on a pop radio when you're driving down Santa Monica or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's the album is not suited for that. It is that genre of underground rap, right?
Yeah.
But
there's no frontrunner songs.
Yes, but that's how this album succeeds too. Yeah. That there are no frontrunner songs. Like if you were to put a frontrunner song, it's probably Accordion, but you know you still have the interludes in between. And I know a lot of albums have interludes, but just in this case, that this album has interludes. This album also has just straight up instrumentals. The amount of sampling from old cartoons and commercials and quoting from comic books and this sort of shtick of these are villains taking over the world. Like they stick to it to a T, and it speaks to the sort of artistic direction that this album had that is very, very clear. And I think that's something that you and I, Mac, have come to appreciate a lot more the more we review things like these albums or these movies or these television shows or even these games, that when there's a clear artistic direction, that will always show. It is so distinct, it is so clear, and it is so irrevocably clear in this piece of work. And that is why I am glad that this is their only sort of piece of work, because we don't think about it and we don't realize that it's actually better that they didn't make a second one, because we have this sort of mystery, right? There was a TED Talk from like 13 years ago with J.J. Abrams. He talks about this concept that is the mystery box. And what makes the mystery box so interesting is that you'll never know what's inside that mystery box, right? It's sort of the same sort of theming of don't meet your heroes, right? Because you have these crazy expectations about who they are and what they do, that you may meet them and like, oh, you're just a grade A asshole. Oh, this isn't what I was expecting. Because you had a mystery box of a person. You had an idea of this person, right? And so everybody who comes off of Madvillainy has this idea of what is Madvillainy 2 gonna sound like? That's gonna be crazy, right?
Yeah.
But it is now, especially now, I mean, particularly before Doom passed, that and 16 plus years later, the expectations are so high, there's no way it could be met. And so in the long term, in sort of the stamp that those two put on the rap game and culture and community and artists as a whole, that stamp is so much more imprinted because it was one and it was done.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And in terms of the stamp that you were talking about, absolutely. I think that it's interesting. And this is another thing, this is another reason why I personally feel like Madvillain, but mainly MF Doom, but I'll go ahead and say Madvillain as a whole, succeeds in and sets themselves apart from all other artists, other rap artists especially, is that there's a section of rappers that they really prioritize talking directly to someone.
Right.
In their raps, they're talking to a person or they're talking to an audience, right? And then there's also rappers that really prioritize storytelling and they really prioritize setting, And then there's rappers that really prioritize the sound. A lot of SoundCloud rappers, that they really care about what the words sound like, not what the words actually mean at all.
Right.
And the reason that I love MF Doom so damn much is because he's the only person I can think of, other than maybe Biggie, that he has truly mastered all three of those camps. His flow sounds unlike anyone else, and it sounds unbelievable, and it's consistently insanity. That box is checked. In his like all of his hollow rhymes that we were talking about, he uses a lot of very quick phrases to give you setting. Like, and Chance the Rapper does this a lot as well, and I think that's where Chance the Rapper would fall into, is that he's really good at giving you setting. He's really good at saying he's really good at saying beautiful sky outside with lemonade in my hand. And in a very similar way, that is something that MF Doom does consistently. In That's That on Born Like This. Already woke, spared a joke, barely spoke. Rarely smoked, stared at folks, when properly provoked, mirror broke. And, which is insane, right? But he's able to do that with his flow and give you setting. And that's just the setup for the rest of the rap, in which he is specifically talking to someone. He keeps his story alive, and he keeps an action and objective whenever he's talking to someone. Which, just like you're talking about, absolute...
It's like a script.
The absolute script.
I've never looked at a rap album in the fashion of examining it like a script. And it has never sort of jumped off the page, quote unquote, in this fashion to me before, right? Perhaps there are some other albums that succeed more in the storytelling aspect. That's fine. But I've never looked at the lyricism as if it was like Shakespearean, as if it is something that it is a script.
Yeah.
It is so cleverly put together. But I do want to speak on my one qualm.
Oh, I'm interested. Okay, yeah.
But this is a very weird qualm. That we have occasionally. It's very rare, but occasionally. I actually enjoy it when it happens. That we have Madlib occasionally rapping on the album. I believe it happens in the track Shadows of Tomorrow. Now, what also happens is MF Doom and Madlib have these alter personas, as I've told earlier. Madlib, one of them, and yes, one of them, is called Quasimodo, or Lord Quas. And so in this one song, Madlib is rapping both as Madlib and Quasimodo.
Oh.
So, but there are very distinct voices that are happening. So it's not necessarily just in the lyricism, but it's also vocally what's happening. Mind you, Quasimodo does have some, editing to it, right? Some voice modulation that's going on, but it's distinct. You, in your mind, you're thinking these are two different people, right? It's weird qualm, and it's a weird hill to die on. On the song Fancy Clown, when MF Doom is rapping as Victor Vaughn, and this song is essentially about Victor Vaughn finding out that his girlfriend was cheating on him with MF Doom, which is just funny to think about.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That his girl was cheating on himself. The big thing that I had with this is that you wouldn't know that this song was being narrated or done by Vincent. I kept saying Vincent. By Victor, excuse me. Cue that failure sound. But you wouldn't know this song was by Victor Vaughn until you kind of like hear it in the lyrics, which is fine. And it does, go to the testament of Doom is letting the lyrics do the work for him.
Yeah.
But in this one case, I wish it kind of wasn't the fact, because I as a sort of character actor, I'm also interested in, so how does Doom portray this character, not just through the text?
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's not, and it's going beyond that it's not Doom presenting this character. It is Daniel Dumoulin presenting Victor Vaughn. It's not Daniel Dumoulin presenting as MF Doom being Victor Vaughn. I wanted to see Daniel Dumoulin as Victor Vaughn.
Yeah. Like take off that mask and put on the next.
Exactly. Sure. Put on. That's a perfect way of putting it. Put on a different mask just for that one song, because that's the only instance you hear Doom allude to his other Dumoulin's alter egos, and other tracks and other interludes and other intros. But this is one that is just strictly Victor Vaughn, but you wouldn't know it except for a seemingly throwaway line of, I'm going to beat up that tin crown mask face man. I just butchered that line, but it goes along those. But yeah. It goes along that. So that is, oddly enough, my only qualm.
That makes sense, though.
But what I enjoy about this album, too, does it fall into that samey sort of sound? No, I don't think it does. And if you think it does, I think this
that's just because
album,
of tone, I think.
I think that's just because of tone and Doom letting the lyrics do the work for him.
Yeah.
And sort of the sampling and the style that is Madlib. But I think if you just look at the heavy lyricism that's at play, and actually just takes the time to actively listen to what's being said, that this album becomes ludicrously impressive minute by minute as you go on. It's only 46 minutes, and in the grand scheme of things, is not terribly long. And it feels like a good amount of it is either just like intros or interludes or instrumentals. But when you get to the actual meat, and I would say the meat is Doom's lyrics, you're in for a treat. But when you recognize you're in for a treat, then the peanut oil is cooking.
The peanut oil is cooking. Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you're talking about how it's not necessarily that you have a qualm with, or that you have any problems with MF Doom choosing to lay low and not act up his words.
Yeah.
The problem is with whenever he does not act up the words as other characters.
Yes. That was my big thing.
Yeah, yeah, and that actually makes total sense. And the funny thing is that I don't
because
think
I feel like it could have helped with the storytelling for that one song, right? That he didn't have to do it for the storytelling of other songs, right? But for this one song, because it's not Doom, that it becomes the sort of, I wouldn't say message, but what's being delivered is not as I think what it could be.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, to me, though, is that I don't think that I would have that big of a problem with it if it wasn't for the fact that Madlib does a much better job at that specific thing. Just like you're talking about.
Yes.
Just like you're talking about.
That if Madlib didn't have that one song that literally had both himself and himself.
Yeah. And did it amazingly.
Yes. Then I probably wouldn't even have a qualm with Victor Vaughn's performance, right? But because I had that precedent, because it's literally a precedent, that Shadows of Tomorrow comes 5 songs before Fancy Clown. Because I got that precedent, I was confused as to why that precedent was immediately broken in that fashion, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, you'll have a precedent of, like, we were looking at the lines that we think he's going to say the B word, but he actually says booze, right? That's a different sort of expectation being broken, where it feels like I'm breaking this expectation specifically for this purpose.
Yeah.
But this is just a sort of different take. I just have that unique take because I am so obsessed with storytelling and how storytelling is delivered that it just feels like for that one song that the storytelling gets muddled.
Yes.
And that's basically it. But aside from that, hot diggity dog.
Yeah.
This, I will say, I mean, this album is incredible. It's fantastic. You will not get everything in the first listen through.
No.
Like, it takes multiple, but it's not difficult to even dive into, which is probably the best part. That on surface level, it's pretty simple, and then when you start picking at the fat, that's when you're good.
Like Shakespeare, where whenever you are reading it, at first glance, there are people in the cheap seats, right, in the groundlings, that are gonna like those jokes.
Yeah. Oh, and he had a dick joke. That's funny. Yeah, everybody got that.
Yeah, and then there are people up in the balcony, the kings and queens, extremely educated scholars and stuff, that are laughing at the same time for an entirely different reason.
Right.
Yeah, and so no matter who you are, you will listen to this album and take away something that you find truly funny and truly sad and truly interesting.
Yes.
But all of it's going to be different depending on who you are.
Take the breath, open your ears, and you would be introduced to a world that is legitimately unlike any other.
Oh, look at you. It's so true, though. It's so true.
Well, I wouldn't lie.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yes.
What are your final takeaways? We just said everyone should absolutely listen to it.
Yeah.
What do you feel after we've had this conversation about MF Doom specifically, Madlib specifically, and the album as a whole?
What I love also that this album does, it opens up this rabbit hole for Dumoulin and Jackson Jr.'s other discography, right? It opens up this portal for you to jump into. That
it's
you
a
listen
good gateway album.
Yes, you listen to this and you become fascinated with what else did they / can they do. Mm-hmm. And that is a testament, I think, to the quality of this album. That when you listen to an album, you're like, that's good, but you can put it down and forget about it next week, right? But when you listen to an album and you're like, I need more, that's a damn good album.
Yeah, true. And it's crazy to me that the album is 45 minutes and it feels like it lasts less than 30. The album goes like that.
Yes.
Yeah, and the whole always leaving them wanting more. Absolute masterclass right here. I would have to agree with you, and I would have to agree with the sentiment that anyone would love this.
Yeah.
Anyone would love this album. I mean, of course, if you're okay with the fact that every single song is explicit, but what rap album isn't nowadays?
You know.
I mean, come on.
You know.
Yes, it's genius. It is some of the best work of both of these phenomenal musicians and the world, although very, very sad to have lost Daniel Dumoulin this past year. Very sad. at the same time, he definitely did not die without changing
he
the
left
industry.
The mark.
He clearly left the mark.
Yeah.
So, yes, we should have gotten more, but we also got plenty.
Oh, yeah. We are still luckily able to celebrate his work. And that was the big objective for today's episode, that it's celebrating this masterclass detail of what is hip-hop at its core. When it comes to the rapping nature and the instrumentation and sampling of it
the whole album, just a smorgasbord of everything that rap and hip-hop has to offer. Absolutely. So...
Yes,
Mr. Lavelle.
That's me.
What are we? Have we ever said your last name on the on the podcast?
Uh-oh.
What is your pick for next week? What are we reviewing next week?
There's a possibility that we may finally get to review something with two of our friends, Izzy and Hannah. But that, much like a bird, is, in the wind, difficult to catch. But who knows? Maybe one day that bird will come back to its nest. Right, so that may be out there. It'd also be funnier, if we just never do that episode.
And if we always are teasing it, but never happens.
Yes, and so kind of peeling back the curtain for this one moment, perhaps we start this bit right now, and maybe we'll never do that episode. And it's kind of like the mystery box I was talking about. That once we do that episode, it'll never be as good as it should be.
But there's a possibility that next week we could record with them and also season 3 of The Wire.
Oh, I mean, we're going to do
2 birds with 1 stone. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.